The world thought he died. Frank Castle thought he finished his war after Daredevil Season 2. But some wars don't end. Almost a year later, he's still fighting, just not in the streets. Because what happened to his family wasn't random. This is the recap of The Punisher Season 1. Let's get into it. Almost a year later, Frank is still stuck in it, waking up every morning at 3 a.m., reliving the moment his family died. So he stays busy. Construction work, long hours, silence. The only person he still sees is Curtis Hoyle, a fellow veteran trying to help others come home from a war Frank never left. But Frank doesn't talk, not about his family and not about Afghanistan. At the work site, a new guy, Donnie, tries to fit in and make some extra money. So he joins a few of the crew on a robbery where they attempt to rob the Irish mob at a local poker game. But it goes wrong. Donnie drops his wallet, exposing who he is, and just like that, he becomes the problem. Later that night, back at the construction site, the crew takes him out back, planning to bury Donnie in concrete. But Frank is there. He kills the crew and saves Donnie. And as the Irish mob prepares to come after them, Frank goes to them first and executes them all. The Punisher is back. Frank isn't as alone as he thinks. Someone is watching him, a man calling himself Micro. He reaches out, directing Frank to his old home, where a disc has been left behind. What's on it changes everything. Footage from Afghanistan. Frank and his unit interrogating and killing a man tied to Homeland Security. A man connected to Agent Dina, who had the video before it was stolen. Now she's chasing answers, pushing past orders and using private military contractor Billy Russo to get closer to the truth. Someone Frank once trusted. Meanwhile, Frank turns to Karen Page, and together they uncover Micro's identity. David Lieberman, a former NSA analyst who was supposed to be dead, but he's not, because his death was covered up by Carson Wolf. Frank finds Carson Wolf and kills him, but not before learning the truth. The hit that killed his family wasn't random. It was meant for him, and the war Frank thought was over is just beginning. Frank tracks down Micro, and he doesn't trust him, so he pushes him, and Lieberman breaks. As an NSA analyst, he was sent the Kandahar footage and realized what it really was. Not a mission, a cover-up. So he sent it to Madani, and that nearly got him killed. Carson Wolf tracked him down, sent special forces to erase him. But the shot meant to kill him hit his phone instead, so he disappeared. Lieberman turns it back on Frank. Frank opens up. In Kandahar, he and Billy Russo were pulled into a Black Ops unit, Cerberus. Off the books, no oversight, they were sent to eliminate high-value targets. Frank didn't know who he was killing, but he knew something was wrong. The missions didn't add up. And when Command ignored his warnings, pushing forward on a mission that got most of his unit killed, Frank finished it himself. A one-man slaughter. And when it was over, he walked away. But the truth didn't. Because now he knows Cerberus wasn't a mission. It was something bigger. Something buried. So for the first time, Frank and Micro align. One goal, find out who's behind it. Frank and Micro need weapons. So Lieberman digs through law enforcement databases, tracking a major gun shipment. The lead points to Turk Barrett, but it's a dead end. The real shipment is part of a Homeland Security sting, and Dina is running it, still chasing answers even as she's told to stop digging. But Frank gets there first. The deal goes down, and he hits it. Chaos. Agents caught off guard, the operation collapses, and Frank walks away with the weapons, but not clean. Dina gives chase, getting closer than anyone has ever since Frank resurfaced, until Micro intervenes, ramming her vehicle hard. Frank has a choice, run or stop. He stops, pulls her from the wreck, and saves her life. To the world, Frank Castle is dead, but he's not, and for the first time, he lets her see him. Frank Castle, alive, and before he disappears, he tells her the truth. He killed Carson Wolf. Dina keeps pushing, now focused on Frank, but she keeps one thing to herself. He's alive. Instead, she brings in Agent Sam, someone she can trust. And as she digs deeper, she reaches Karen Page, trying to understand who Frank really is. Karen doesn't give her everything, but it's enough. Meanwhile, the man behind it all steps forward. William Rollins, a decorated war hero, but behind the scenes, he's the one running Cerberus. Frank and Micro follow their next lead, Gunnar Henderson, a soldier who knew what Cerberus really was. They find him living off the grid, but they're not the only ones. Rollins knows Frank is alive, and he sends a team to kill Henderson. What follows is a firefight, Frank and Henderson fighting side by side, taking them all down. But it costs them. Henderson is hit, and before he dies, the truth gets closer. Cerberus wasn't a mission, it was something bigger. In the aftermath, Micro makes a move. He tips off the authorities, leading them to Henderson's body. Frank barely makes it out, injured, so he turns to Kurt. Kurt patches him up, no questions asked. But while Frank is fighting one more, another war is starting. Lewis Wilson, a young veteran, angry, lost, and suffering from PTSD, looking for something to believe in. And when a man he looked up to is exposed as a fraud, someone who never actually served, Lewis snaps and kills him. Meanwhile, Dina gets closer to Russo, close enough to use him, but Russo sees it, and she confirms it. Frank Castle is alive. Russo puts out a message, one Frank will hear, and he does. The two finally meet. Frank tells him the truth. Cerberus wasn't just Black Ops, it was a cover for something bigger. Russo offers him a way out, a new life, but Frank says no, because this isn't over. Back at the scene, Dina finds Henderson, and the evidence, Frank's blood, proof he's alive, and moving. And finally, Russo meets with Rollins, not as enemies, but as allies. Lewis is slipping, alone, unstable, and on the edge. But before the story erupts, Frank and Micro make their next move. A new target, Colonel Morty Bennett, one of the men behind Cerberus. At the same time, Dina starts to realize something else. Henderson wasn't random. He was targeted because of her, which means someone is watching. She and Agent Sam sweep the office, and they find it. A bug, proof they're being tracked. But Frank is already moving. He infiltrates Bennett's base, silent, precise, until it isn't. Russo is waiting, leading a team ready for him. The two collide, but Russo is hidden behind a mask, and Frank doesn't know. What follows is a brutal fight. Frank tears through the soldiers, barely escaping, while Micro works in the background, tracking Bennett's phone, following it until it leads exactly where they feared, Rollins. And before Frank can reach him, Russo makes the call. He kills Bennett and cuts the loose end. Frank arriving too late, he takes the shot, but Rollins is untouchable, standing behind bulletproof glass. And just like that, they're reminded, this isn't just a conspiracy, it's controlled, and they're always one step ahead. Back underground, Frank and Micro finally have a name. Rollins, the man behind Cerberus. But Micro's world starts to slip. The camera's watching his family go dark. He panics and sends Frank to check. At the house, Frank finds the issue. The internet's been cut. Zach, Micro's kid, has been acting out. Sarah, his wife, shut it off as punishment. Frank fixes it, but he doesn't leave. He stays, and they talk. They drink, and for a moment, it feels normal. Until it crosses a line. A kiss, brief but regretted, something neither of them can afford. Afterwards, Sarah asks Frank to help Zach. Frank tries to handle it his way. He threatens him. But then he sees it, he's just a kid, missing his father, and what he really needs is someone there. Meanwhile, Dina makes her move. She knows she's being watched, so she uses it, feeds false intel, and sets a trap. And this time, it works. Russo walks straight into it. A Homeland Security ambush. His entire team is wiped out, but Russo survives, as he always does. And in the chaos, he kills Agent Sam, and disappears before Dina ever sees it's him. Later that night, he finds her, and stands beside her as she mourns, but she never realizes that he's the one that killed her partner. Frank is ready to make a move. He agrees to reach out to Dina to give her Rollins, but first, he needs to be sure that she's not part of it. So he and Micro watch, wait, and then everything changes. Bombs go off across New York. Coordinated, public, deadly, civilians killed, and dozens injured. And at the center of it, Lewis Wilson. He leaves behind a message blaming the system, targeting anyone he sees as against him, and sends it to Karen Page, hoping she'll tell his story. But she doesn't. She shuts it down, publicly, on the radio, and that makes her a target. Lewis calls in and threatens her. And Frank hears it. He recognizes the voice because he's seen him before, through Kurt. Micro tracks him down while Kurt does the same. Kurt arrives first, trying to stop him, but he's too late. Lewis attacks him and beats him down. He then ties him to a bomb and leaves him to die, until Frank arrives, just in time. He talks Lewis down, and Lewis allows him to disarm the bomb. For a moment, it seems that it works, but Lewis makes one last move. He calls the police and turns Frank into the target. Sirens close in and Frank is forced to run. Caught on camera, he's now seen and exposed. And within hours, the story spreads. Frank Castle is alive, and now he's being labeled something new. A bomber, a terrorist. As Micro makes his move, going directly to Dina, telling her everything about Rollins, about Cerberus, and the war that never ended. Lewis has one target left, a senator, a public face of anti-gun legislation, hosting a fundraiser for the bombing victims, protected by Billy Russo's company Anvil, exactly where Lewis wants to be. He infiltrates the event, kills one of Russo's men, and takes his place. At the same time, Dina puts it together. The warehouse team, all tied to Anvil, which leads her straight to Russo. She confronts him, but before she can push further, Lewis makes his move. He storms the room, gunfire and chaos ensue, and he goes straight for the senator. But Frank is already there, stopping the shot, until Lewis changes the game. An explosive vest and Karen Page as a hostage. He drags her into an elevator, but Frank is forced into the stairwell, fighting through Anvil soldiers on every level. He makes it down and comes face to face with Dina and Russo. Before anything can happen, Dina sees it, the truth. Russo's the one that killed her partner, and she tries to take him in, but Russo won't let it happen. The standoff builds until police flood the scene. Russo and Dina both taken into custody, but Frank disappears in the chaos because he's not done yet. He finds Lewis and he finds Karen. In tandem, Karen disarms the trigger of the bomb and Frank shoots Lewis in the foot. Lewis locks himself inside a walk-in freezer trying to get away, but he's already made his choice. He rearms the bomb and detonates it. Gone, just like that. But Frank and Karen escape once more. Frank makes a decision. He ends his partnership with Micro. No more hiding, he's the Punisher again. But the fallout is closing in. Dina pushes harder. She interrogates Russo about the killing of her partner. He denies it, but she doesn't stop. She takes everything she knows about Rollins and Cerberus up the chain, trying to force action. Meanwhile, Micro's world collapses. Zach makes a mistake. Seeing the news about Frank on TV, he feels lied to and betrayed, so he calls the police. Agents arrive not to protect them, but to take them. Sarah and Zach are grabbed, but Leo disappears. Frank and Micro see it happen, too late to stop it, so they split. Micro goes to find his daughter, Frank stays, waiting, because he knows Russo will come. And when he does, Frank is ready. A team of soldiers hit the base. He tears through them, one by one, searching for answers, but getting none. At the same time, the system protects itself. Rollins makes a move. He offers up Russo as a scapegoat, a way to bury everything, and the deal is taken. Frank changes course. He finds Dina and forces the alliance. They regroup with Micro and Leo. Now aligned, there's one target left, Rollins. Frank makes a deal, himself and Micro for Sarah and Zach. But Micro has a backup plan. Every file on Cerberus and Rollins, everything they uncovered, locked behind a timer, a dead man's switch. Frank confesses to everything, giving Dina what she needs. At the exchange, everything falls apart. Agents move in and gunfire erupts. And in the chaos, Micro goes down. Or at least it looks like he does. But it's a ruse, a way out. He disappears, finally free to return to his family. While Frank is taken, delivered straight to Russo, and the truth finally comes out. Russo knew about the plan, about Frank's family, and he did nothing. That betrayal cuts deeper than anything else. Rollins arrives, wanting revenge. He tortures Frank, forces him to unlock the files, believing he's destroying everything. Not knowing it's already too late, Dina has the truth. But Rollins isn't finished. He keeps going. He wants Frank to suffer, he wants revenge. But Frank breaks free and kills him. The man behind Cerberus, gone. Russo watches it happen, then moves to finish Frank himself. But before he can, police arrive. Gunfire erupts, Russo is hit, but still manages to escape. Frank barely survives. Dina and Micro get him to her father, a doctor, who saves his life. But Russo is still out there, and he's not done. He kills the agents sent after him, then he finds Kurt and takes him hostage, forcing one last meeting. That night, at the carousel, the place where Frank's family died. Dina tracks him, knows where he's going, and ignores orders to stand down, because this ends now. Frank arrives first, then Russo. No masks, no lies, just the truth. and the fight begins. Brutal, personal, everything they've been holding back. Until Dina arrives, and Russo shoots her. She drops, but Frank doesn't stop. He keeps going, fighting through it, until he finally gets the upper hand. And in that moment, he has a choice. Kill him and end it, but he doesn't. Instead, he does something worse. He smashes Russo's face into glass again and again and again, leaving him alive but broken and disfigured. A reminder of everything he's done. The war is over, but not clean. Frank is taken into custody, and Dina survives, but barely. Russo survives too, and 3 days later, the system resets. Frank is released at Dina's request. No trial, no prison, just freedom. Russo takes the fall, blamed for everything. The truth buried, again. Micro is cleared, and he returns to his family. And Frank goes somewhere unexpected. Kurt's support group, sitting with the same men he once refused to speak to. Not healed, not fixed, but present. Because maybe the war never really ends. But for the first time, Frank Castle isn't fighting it alone. And that's the story of The Punisher Season 1. A war Frank Castle thought he finished, only to learn it went much deeper. The more he dug, the more he uncovered. This wasn't just revenge, it was a system. And in the end, Frank didn't escape it, he brought it down. Not as a soldier, but as the Punisher. If you enjoyed this recap, let me know your favorite moment from Season 1 in the comments below. And if you want more Marvel recaps like this, make sure to subscribe. And remember, we're here to watch the realities and guide you through the timelines.